This laptop here is the Asus FX 505 DT. This one's running a Ryzen 7 3750H, 8GB of DDR4, a 4GB GTX 1650, a 512GB SSD, and a 120Hz display. To begin with, I'll have a look at the keyboard there, as it seems to stand out to me the most. So as you can see, WASD is clear, and right now it's cycling through the various colours. I did have issues with the keyboard software holding whatever colour I picked, so out of the box I wasn't able to manually assign a colour. It would flick to it for a split second and then revert back to pulsing through. The other thing I found with it is, since it's not a relatively rectangle shaped keyboard, as you see the spacebar protrudes down and the arrow keys, I did encounter quite a lot of chassis flex near the middle of the keyboard, especially from probably J or HJ onto the left all the way to WASD. That section there, you could literally tap the key and you'd hear the vibration of the plastic. Yet if we went over towards the number pad on the right hand side, you wouldn't have that dilemma at all. So I did feel fairly cheap, that keyboard. But to Asus's credit, I did like them sticking with relatively simple keyboard shortcuts compared to other brands that seem to have overly complicated function keys. Everything seemed to be in its usual default position. Now looking at the top half of the laptop, on the back it has a little bit of a gamer tint to it. It is just made of plastic, so it's nothing too fancy. Durability should be alright. Now if I switch it around to the other side, we'll see another star of the show. The display. 120Hz, 1080, FHD panel with very reasonable viewing angles. I think you'd be pushing it hard to have a better viewing angle than what you can get on this panel, especially from a laptop. The screen itself is also a good level of brightness. I'm not sure what the sRGB is and the Adobe RGB, but overall pretty happy with this particular panel. This is just a quick test of the Asus FX 505D webcam and microphone. As you see, motion's very typical of a laptop webcam and also very typical of a laptop microphone. And next up, I want to try and open it one-handed. So I'm just only lifting it from the middle of the screen. As you see, getting right near the top, nearly fully opened, and then it gets a bit of wobble there where it lifts off the ground. Definitely, as with all machines, definitely recommend using two hands to open it, one to hold the base, one to lift the screen from the center. But anyway, just a quick demo of that. Moving on. And now I'll have a look at the I/O that's on here. So on the right hand side of the laptop, all we have is a Kensington lock. Nothing else is on this right hand side apart from a speaker port. Switching over to the left hand side, we have power, Ethernet, HDMI, USB 3x3, and a 3.5mm headphone/microphone jack. And next up is the trackpad itself, which is just a single piece of plastic with no individual left, right and clickers, which personally I prefer. It does have those weird little triangles in each corner. Moving around the trackpad's perfectly fine, but I definitely miss those individual clickers. The included charger with it is a 150 watt charger, one made in-house by Asus, not by a third party. So with that, I found the actual physical dimensions of this charger to be slightly smaller compared to other comparable machines. So now the part of the video which most people probably came here for. Performance. How well does this machine go? So right now I've got CSGO loaded up on the machine, everything's set to high, resolution at 1080, and I'm just going to load up a downloaded demo video on Underpass. I do find Counter-Strike Go to be more CPU intensive than GPU intensive, So my findings of this was, even though it's got the Ryzen 7 in it, it's fairly comparable to a i5 9300, or essentially the i5 9th generation laptops. It does perform a little bit less than them. So as we can see, with everything maxed out right now, we're averaging around about 70 FPS on this current map. Yet if we switch over to something like GTA, we can see that it's getting around 70 FPS at 97 GPU utilization, using around 50% of the processor. Granted, this is only the intro level of GTA 5, so it mightn't fully reflect the full game. GTA here is also running on high settings. Now, the biggest thing that I find that would come down to the purchase of this machine is price. The only way I could see this really being competitive compared to the i5 version of this one is essentially if it was up to potentially a couple of hundred AUD cheaper than the Intel equivalent. If the Ryzen 7's at the same price point as the Intel i5 version of this, I'd be definitely steering towards the Intel version, as I'm finding that the Ryzen APUs and CPUs and laptops aren't quite on the same level as Intel. I'm definitely certain that's probably going to change in about 6 months' time. But at the moment, if you could find this machine at a cheap price, or considerably cheaper than the Intel equivalent, I'd potentially put it on the wish list. But anyway, I'm going to catch you later, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.